A quick video response. Richard Dawkins is involved in another of his Twitter shitstorms. I do have a little bit of sympathy to the guy. People ask you questions, they get you embroiled in issues which are hot topics, and it's so, we've all got opinions on these things. It's so easy to be drawn in, and yet when you're drawn in, it's like announcing which football team you prefer. It doesn't matter what you say, you're fucked up one way or another. There's some people you're going to have pissed off, and it's the same thing with these issues. Richard Dawkins gets asked questions, he responds to them, and that is his undoing. Once he's laid his cards on the table, once he's nailed his flag to the mast, is going to be hung, drawn and quartered by one group or another, especially these fucking social commentators who say things like Richard Dawkins should just stick to what he knows. He's a scientist, that's all he should do. He should leave these social issues to the people that know about these things. In other words, them, the self-appointed moral arbiters. I don't know what makes them experts on these things. That means that they can talk for all of us, or they can discuss these things, but a fucking Richard Dawkins isn't entitled to his opinion on issues that affect society. It seems somewhat sort of Taliban-esque, that kind of approach. But there you go. So I do feel a little bit sorry, because I'm the same as Richard Dawkins. I can't help but have opinions on things, and like most people, I want to give my opinions out there. That being said, on this issue, this abortion issue, I disagree with him. What Richard Dawkins had said, he was responding to somebody who had said, if I had a fetus and I had the tests and he had Down syndrome, I don't know what I'd do, would I abort it or not? And he said, abort it and try again. It would be immoral to bring it into the world if you have the choice. I disagree with him here. I think he's got it wrong. I think he's probably, I'd agree with him about aborting it. That's probably what I would do. If I had a womb and Richard Dawkins had a womb and we were both pregnant, we'd probably both do the same thing. If we found out that our fetuses had Down syndrome, we'd probably both do the same thing. That's not what I disagree with him on. I disagree with him on the idea that it's immoral. If we knew in advance, it's about expectation. If we knew in advance that the baby was going to have serious, gross, physical or mental defects that would give it a terrible quality of life and would provide a huge burden on society. Most of the social commentators, by the way, couldn't give a fuck about the burden on society. Doesn't matter how many millions it costs. It's your right to burden society with those millions of pounds, even if you know in advance that's what you're going to do. They couldn't give a fuck about that. I could. I'd factor that in. Maybe Richard Dawkins would factor that in. If you know you're going to create this huge burden and there's going to be no quality of life, or a lot of pain or what have you, that's one thing. But that isn't the case with Down syndrome. People with Down syndrome can lead productive lives, can lead happy lives, can lead lives that span decades, get into the 40s and 50s, can lead quite independent lives with some help, some support from society. So I don't think that he's right in that particular instance. But that isn't particularly what I wanted to talk about. It was about a response that he got from somebody called Ashling O'Brien, who is something like the chairperson of the Dublin branch of Atheists for Ireland. No wonder she's got an interest in Richard Dawkins talking about abortion if you live in a country with fucked up views on abortion, such as you get in Ireland, so heavily lent from the religious perspective there. And what Dawkins had said, he'd done another tweet that said, I think abortion is right if the woman wants an abortion. Down syndrome is one very good and extremely common reason to want it. And she tweeted back, right, this is the important thing, she tweeted back, agreed. But to say it is immoral to not abort is not taking a pro-choice position. It is judging women. Now, there's two things that I want to make here. I want to talk about pro-choice positions and all that jazz. It's perhaps the main thing. But first, about judging women. Look, I accept that when you make a text, there's only 140 characters, so maybe I'm misinterpreting Ashling, but they're no more than anybody could say that they're misinterpreting Richard Dawkins. We've all got 140 characters, and we're responsible for what's in those 140 characters. It is judging women, she says. You know, I've got to ask, what is this fucking don't judge women trope all about? Does it just mean women? Just don't judge women. Judge men. Keep judging men. That's absolutely fine. Society will break down if we stop judging men, because then we can't judge anybody. We can't judge the Palestine-Israel conflict. We can't discuss Norway and Japan carrying on killing whales for scientific reasons. We can't discuss anything. So yeah, by all means, carry on judging men, but fucking hell, don't judge women. Women, we're gonna create this little group, and we're gonna say these are people that you can't judge anymore. I'm assuming that isn't what Ashling means, but what does she mean? Does she mean don't judge anybody? And what about the mother of the unborn child who's on heroin, who has a baby? The baby is born addicted to heroin. Can't we even say that that is immoral? Do we still have to remain neutral on that one, Ashling? And what is wrong with judging people? We judge people all the time. If we're not prepared to judge people, if we're not allowed to judge people, then effectively we're banning morality. And I think that that's really maybe not the best thing that we should do. But what I'm really interested in was the first part of the statement, which is to say it is immoral to not abort is not taking a pro-choice position. I don't think that could be any clearer. I don't think you need more than 140 characters, or however many 100 characters or whatever that was, to say that. It's very clear. It's saying that whatever your position on the pro-choice, pro-life thing, if you think that if you think one of those decisions is an immoral one, you're not really pro-choice. I don't think philosophically Ashling could be further from the truth, and I think there are practical implications. Let's go through the first one first. Why I think it's philosophically she couldn't be further from the truth is that how pro-choice am I? I'm kind of trivially pro-choice. I don't see an unborn fetus of 15 weeks, for example, or 20 weeks as being a human being. I see it as a life form. Obviously, it's a life form all the way through, okay? But I don't see it at that point as being a human being. And I don't want to grant it all the rights that we grant human beings for that reason. At what point does it become a human being? Well, there isn't a point where it becomes a human being. It's a discontinuity. It's starting to become a human being. In some senses, it's a human being, but I don't feel it's a fully developed human being, and I'm not happy to say, yeah, that's a human being at that point. And so it's trivially easy for me to be pro-choice. But imagine if I was religious, and I think that it's immoral to take the life of a fetus because I regard it as a human being, that I think that it's got God-given rights, that I think it's got perhaps an immortal immaterial soul, and God has told us we cannot take its life, it's an immoral thing to do. Now, if I still, even though I think that, say that women should have the choice, aren't I even being more pro-choice? Aren't I like super pro-choice? Shouldn't I be respected more for that rather than dismissed, well, you're not properly pro-choice? Because what does it mean? It means that I've got to have come to either one of two conclusions. I've either, there's some cognitive dissonance here, and on some level I've got to have said, well, there's the immorality of the act as I see it here of having an abortion, or in this case, not having an abortion. And yet, weighing against that, I'm taking the rights of a woman to decide what to do with her body and of something that's developing in her body, and I'm saying that those rights trump the rights of the fetus. Okay? That's a moral dilemma to make, and that's a real decision with real life traction that has to be made. Or perhaps they can't even do that. Perhaps a religious person thinks, no, I don't think the rights of the mother trump the rights of the unborn fetus. But what I do know is that I live in a society where not everybody believes in God, that not everybody has the same moral perspective that I have. I recognise other people have different moral perspectives, and as a result of that, could reach other moral conclusions. And I accept that their moral perspectives are legitimate moral perspectives. They're not evil, they're not mad. They've got legitimate moral perspectives, and so while it isn't a decision that I would make, I accept it could be a decision that they would want to make, and so I'm pro-choice. Not every religious person makes those arguments, but this is where the real life problem is that if you live in a country where, say like the United States, 90% of people are Christians, you need some of those people. You need some people that are going to think that abortion is immoral, right, to nevertheless be pro-choice. They're going to have to adopt one of the two arguments I just gave, or an argument somewhere along those lines. And if you then dismiss the decision that they've made as, well, you're not really pro-choice, even though you're saying, yes, I think women should have the choice, you're not really pro-choice because you think one of the options is immoral. How helpful is that to adopt that kind of stance? Not very helpful. You're not going to encourage anybody. As far as I'm concerned, issues of morality and issues of legality are not always the same thing. I do think it is immoral to have an affair. If you swear to somebody that you are going to remain faithful to them, that you're not going to fuck anybody else, and then you go away and fuck somebody else, I think that is immoral. But with regard to having affairs, I'm still pro-choice. I don't think we should make that illegal. I don't think we should start locking people up for having affairs. I'm pro-choice when it comes to affairs. Some people think that abortion is immoral, but still think, despite that for one reason or another, every woman should be allowed to make her own choice. I don't think it's right to say those people aren't pro-choice. I think they're ultra pro-choice, and I think they should be respected for the decision that they've made. All right, well, thank you for watching this video. I'd be interested to know what you think. Bye for now.